What's going on, guys? Dan here, TD Speed Shop. So today we're gonna make the most amount of budget power with the most amount of power, smallest amount of money. So a couple of videos ago I picked up this 454. So I got this in a transmission for $1,000, turbo 400, and I think it should be pretty good. We fired it up, had good oil pressure. It's kind of an early to mid 70s block, oval port heads, probably pretty low compression, HEI on it. That's about all there was. It had some smog pumps and stuff like that on it. I had a few parts which people seem to give me a little bit of attitude about when I say budget build, but I had these valve covers in stock. A lot of people wanted the stock ones, which I put up there. We can put them on the shelf, so I always put those back on. So $1,000 in the motor and transmission. I then spent $400 or $500, camshaft, lifters, new timing chain, and some gaskets. So I think anybody should probably do that anyways. You could absolutely just put this motor in the car if you're looking for cheap horsepower. Motor transmission, it had a quadjet, it was carbured pan, it was ready to go. I mean, this thing, we had to do nothing to it, but I want a little bit more power. So this thing probably has, I don't know, 250 horsepower or something like that when it was new, and, you know, mid threes for torque. I did buy a thumper camshaft, which I know a lot of people have had some less than stellar things to say about it. I want for the sound. I'm a bit of a poser, and why should my cars not be that way as well? So it'll sound good, it'll open up a little bit, it'll definitely have more jam than this stock camshaft. And we got a set of headers. I found them real cheap on the internet. I paid $100. Ceramic coated headers. I did have this carburetor in stock, and I did order a off-brand kind of intake manifold. It should be here in a couple of days. So the plan today, we're going to strip this thing down, get some weight off it, so when we spin it around, it's not quite so hard to do. Drain the oil out of it, take the pan off. Some people are saying this might be a 4-bolt main. I guess it had an oil cooler on it. We'll get to the bottom of that as well. Just give it a quick once over. And ultimately, I think I'm going to pull the camshaft out, see what we have. If I need any parts, I can get them tomorrow, or I have a couple days to order stuff for the weekend. And yeah, take it all apart, put it back together. Just that simple, but we'll do it together. Be a fun time. Okay, when it comes to stripping a motor apart, cleanliness is pretty important. So clean your shop. I didn't. Anyway, a lot of this stuff just kind of mocked up and sitting together. We're going to pull some weight off the top of the motor, so when we flip it over, it won't just go like crazy. Big block Chevys are heavy. Don't let anybody tell you any different. So to start, I'm just going to go ahead and zip off this intake manifold because it is ridiculously heavy. We'll pull out the distributor, intake off. We'll pull the front dress. The headers are just literally held on by 2 bolts, so we should be able to strip this thing down in a real hurry. So yeah, at this point there's no point marking where the distributor is or anything like that. This thing's all going to come completely apart, and we're going to have to reset all the timing marks and, well, the timing I should say, and all that. But these are all good parts. So we'll put them on the hood of this fine Thunderbird. Go from there. Strip this thing apart. So we've got our table. Look at all that. Just, don't want to scratch the paint or nothing on this priceless Thunderbird, but it looks good in here. Clean, no real issues. Shocking. Everything's in good shape. Doesn't look like the cam's wiped out or nothing like that upon first inspection. It's had obviously an intake gasket done at some point, so I believe that's probably aftermarket. So we'll get that all ripped apart. I want to leave the cylinder heads on this thing, but we'll see. I gotta change the valve springs. Yeah, well, it says dual ones. That's weird. Anyways, but take that all apart. So we'll go ahead and loosen all the rockers. That'll give all the let all the push rods come out of it. We'll take the front dress apart, or the pulley. Then we got to pull the dampener off. Once that's off, flip it over. Oil pan off, timing cover off, timing chain, cam out. I think that's where we're gonna leave it for a day. I'm hoping. Big block Chevys are heavy. Be careful when you're turning these things around. They can really get away from you. Okay, so we got most of the stuff off. I did pull the balancer off or the dampener off, and I'm just taking out the lifters. And man, they're coming out so easy. Like usually these, well, in the past I've had them where they're stuck. You got to hammer them out and all sorts of stuff like that. But these, they're actually so slippery they fall back in. Of course, this one's going to be a pain, but now if you actually care about these, you might not want to use pliers and stuff like that on them. But they're just, look at this popping right out. Usually you get like a little ridge on them. Pull them out by hand, I'll take it. So I'm going to get all these out, because these will fall when you spin the motor over. And then, yeah, we'll spin the motor over and we'll take the oil pan off, see what it looks like. But so far, so good. Okay, so we're flipped over. Now this is what everyone was saying. If it had a cooler, it might be a 4-bolt main. We're about to find out. We'll take this off the cooler, just bolts on with 2 bolts, I believe. We'll ditch that, we're not going to put it back on. And yeah, regular oil filter. We'll change the ring gear when it's off the stand because it's easier to get to. So zing out all these bolts, oil pan off, and we'll see what it looks like in here. I'm excited. All right, moment of truth. We got all the bolts out. Someone used a little bit of silicone, and hopefully it won't stuck too bad. Don't want to bend the pan. Now, if you're doing this in the car, you're doing a cam, you can't cheat it by just dropping the front few bolts. But then kind of bend the pan. It's a bit of a hassle. And I don't know you guys, but I kind of hate oil leaks. And I actually sprung for a 1-piece gasket because well, they're worth it. So I gotta deal with this junk when it's all silicone together. Alright. Survey says 2-bolt main, which is fine. That looks clean. On the pan, look at that. A little bit of sludge, but that's no big deal. Alright, so now everything in there looks good. There's no junk in the filter pickup, or the oil pump pickup, I should say. This looks all kind of stock. Everything's all stamped. I wonder if these things been apart, or if that's just how it was from the factory. Anyways, it's irrelevant. Timing cover off. Well, the timing chain doesn't feel like it has too much slop in it, but we're going to change anyways. So, we'll do that. We'll probably do it upside down. But, set of bolts, cover off, and we'll pull the cam. Life's good. So, cover is off. Now, this is very simple. Obviously, we're upside down, so that's the camshaft, that's the crankshaft. Now, this, I believe, is a factory timing set. A little bit of slop in it, but I've had them so bad. I've taken the timing cover off and the chains rubbed up against the cover, so this isn't too terrible. So it's going to be 3 bolts. This will come off, and then we'll be able to pull the camshaft out. And I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. I got to double check, make sure I have all the gaskets for tomorrow. I don't know if I got a front seal, because you do on the timing cover. This is your front engine seal. You know it's not leaking. I like to smash a new one in there while I'm at it. I'll probably take this and the old pen to work, clean them in the Varsol tank, you know, make them look a little bit nicer. Otherwise, that's a big block Chevy all disassembled. Well, partially disassembled. Alright, so here's where we're going to end it. We got the timing gear off. I do got to pull the crank gear off, but I need a little 2-prong puller. I have one obvious, but I'll have to find that. Anyways, the cam. Now the cam is obviously the length of the engine block, and as everything rotates, it kind of wants to go backwards as the distributor holding it in. People recommend a cam button. I don't think we're going to do that. Now when you're taking it out, you want to try and not, well, going in is more important, but going out, you don't really want to gull the bearings on the sharp edges of the lobes. So you take, well, in this case, a long, I think it's a 5/16 bolt, gives you just a little bit more leverage, something to kind of hang on to as you go. You want to try and keep it level-ish. Otherwise it'll get caught on things. If I can, anyway. There we go. So it's kind of counterintuitive. You actually want to push down on the front of the cam to keep the back of it up. And I'll just move that cone out of here. What am I stuck on? Oh! I didn't even think about it, but there is going to be a rod here for the fuel pump? Is that still in? Is that what we're calling on? This thing didn't have a fuel pump on, it had a block-off plate, maybe they left the rod in it. Or even a concept knows. So this thing had a block-off plate on the fuel pump, so I didn't even think, but they left the rod in the motor, which I actually ordered a new one. So it runs off the camshaft. Cam lobe is what runs fuel pumps. So if you leave the rod in, it'll get caught up. So it'd be nice to take out when the motor was the other way around. Well, right side up, rod's still not coming out. I'm probably gonna have to run a bolt or something in there, weld it and knock it out, or use some alt thread and pull it out, or do something along those lines. But that's a job for tomorrow because I'm tired and I've been giving her all day working on another video. This is supposed to be just a start to an easy one, and well, it's my fault. Otherwise, everything looks good. I got no real complaints. I'll take a couple things to work, get them cleaned up for tomorrow. If I can get that rod out, I got to get some brake clean and some, you know, roll lock discs so I can clean everything. Cam should go out, new cam in, new timing set, oil pan gasket. I mean, it just should go all together. And then, yeah, the only thing we're going to do is going to be a bit of a trick, and I might have to make, I don't have, is to change push rods. So I'll have, or the valve springs. I have one for when the head is off, but when the head's on, it takes like a little lever thing. So see if the speed shop has one I can buy real cheap, otherwise I'll just make one out of a bar and kind of keep going. But there you go, that's almost all the assembly of cheap horsepower. We're going for ice cream. Next day, did a little bit of screwing around. Got the camshaft out, which fought me. And got the gear and all that off the front of the crank. And I got the fuel pump rod out. Now, nothing went easy. I had to build a little thing to get the gear off because I couldn't find my jaw puller thing. So I got that off. Mint. The one that was a pain, actually. So this push rod was stuck up in the block. So I welded on a piece of all thread, and I just put a washer and stuff, and I used it as a puller to pull it out. But then I had to get in here and grind the tip down, or my weld down. So it's such a small hole that it had to come out of. So I hate doing that, but I brake cleaned everything real good. I blew it all out. Everything on the top's clean. I cleaned the mating surfaces for the intake and whatnot, and the timing cover. So that's all pretty much ready to go. Now what we're going to do, we're going to slap in the camshaft, put on the timing cover, get that all done, flip it upside down, oil pan on, flip it back right side up, and then lifters in. Well, I guess we got to do push rods or valve springs and whatnot. So we got a little bit of screwing around to do, but we should be able to get most of this stuff on and ready to go back together. So it should be a good time. A Tumper camshaft. Everyone has their own opinion on it. Some say it's junk. I paid for it, so I'll let you know if it's garbage. But we'll go ahead and get this thing semi-installed. Well, I guess fully installed. The old Leatherman. So it's pretty simple. Motorcycle. You got to coat it in a bunch of goo. They give you a little bit in the box, some assembly lube. I do have the lifters. Guess that's the way she's going to be. They do have the lifters soaking in some oil. So to start, we're going to go ahead and just goo it up. Now this is just assembly lube, which is really kind of gooey and sticks to everything. I'm a big believer in you might as well use it because it's pretty good. So we'll get this going. Slide her on in. And just as you go, a little, do you? The bearings, cam bearings actually look nice on this motor, so that was a bonus. Up next, we have our timing set. So obviously it's there's chain. There's a double roller, so it's got 2 sets of teeth. So we're gonna go ahead and put the one on the crank. This will be a bit of a smash fit, and this one just has 3 bolts and a dowel to fit on the camshaft. Now, if you look at it, there's a little dot there and a dot there. Now the goal is, when you're setting up the cam, you'll want to set them straight up and down. Now you can advance them one way or the other. I don't think this is the right set for that, or maybe the cam is, whatever, but we're going to set it up dot to dot, and then that's exactly how we want it. Now it's pretty easy. All you got to do, this has a little keyway that has the dowels. Once it's in, you rotate the cam and the crank so they're where they want to be. So we'll go ahead and get this started. Okay, so we got the gear on. I didn't film it because everyone's going to judge me how I did it. I put this piece of pipe on there and rallied it on with a hammer, and people always say that's hard on bearings. Anyway, so now we've got the dot up and down. We got the crank or the cam up and down, so they're pretty close. The crank might need a little bit of a turn, but anyways, we have a couple volts just to kind of get it basically where it's going to go, and obviously the cam will spin freely and fall right out of the motor. But we're going to put this chain on the bottom gear as well as the gear. The top gear will have it undone from the cam. And there's a torque spec for all these bolts, red Loctite and an impact. And everyone's gonna say I should put a cam button in it, and I'm not doing it. So let's get her lined up. All right, a little jump ahead. We got the oil pan on. I mean, pretty simple. It's just a gasket, one piece gasket. I used a little bit of silicone front and back. I really hate leaks and hope this doesn't come apart. I got the balancer started. Oh yeah, we have timing cover on. Again, same thing. Pretty simple. Now we have the balancer just starting. Now all I've done, now a lot of times I've whacked this on just with a block of wood. It's apparently hard on the bearings and all this sort of stuff. They do sell a tool for this, but I was looking at what the tool was, and ultimately we're just going to make ourselves like a little puller. So I went and got some all-thread rod. This is 1/2 inch fine, and I just got a couple of big washers, so it's going to push against the balancer itself, and then just some 1/2 inch washers to kind of hold it. Everything's all lubed up, so you know it'll go as easy as possible. We'll just crank that the way in. Now this kit did come with a speedy seal, which is basically a little seal you kind of put on the balancer, but you know what, it's in really good shape, so I think it's fine. I put a new front seal in it. The only thing I didn't do was change the rear seal, but I didn't have it in any of the kits I got, and the oil pan wasn't all soaked, so I'm going to call it fine. So we get that dialed together, and then I think we'll probably go ahead and change the valve springs, and yeah, put the rockers and all that back together, and we're basically there. Motor is mint. Okay, so we have our thread rod in there. We're just going to line up our washers, and we're going to put my wrench in here. And the key with this is make sure you're watching it lock itself in, which it is. It's going real easy. You don't want to end up pulling the threads out of the crank, but this is good. Going in nice and easy. And with an old balancer, it's pretty simple. There's a witness mark of where the kind of dirt and whatnot is. So we'll make sure we go in there. The balancer is what basically goes into the front seal and prevents the oil from yakking out. So I don't know if it'll bottom out or what, but we'll see what happens here. Okay, balancer's on. It's nighttime. I just started changing some of the valve springs. So we're putting on a heavier duty valve string. It's still just a single kind of job, but you can see just in the height alone, she's a little different. So those are the old ones. So I figure what I'd do is I'd show you how we do one. We'll do just the, I guess that's the intake or whatever. We'll do one of them on that side. And then I've already done this side. Look at that, they're all mint. Once that gets taken care of, we'll put in the push rods. We'll roll it around. We'll set the lash while it's all apart. I was hoping to get the intake tonight, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen since it's now everything is closed. I don't even know if it showed up or not. So we'll get this all dialed together and carry on. It's a good time. We're going to hold the valves up with some rope. We've got everything kind of ready to go. Now you have to support the valve up when you're going to, unless you're taking a cylinder head off, to change valve springs. So step one, you just got to give the retainer just a little whack with a hammer just so it's kind of free. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to jam this piece of rope into the cylinder, and what happens is when we roll it over, as the piston comes up, the rope will hold the valves up, hopefully. I could have used a little bit more rope. This is kind of not quite enough, but it's pretty good. Oh, maybe this one's all jammered here. Gentle. Well, the cylinder must already be pretty high. Back her down a little. So, as much of this in as we can. Roll it around. Now it's stopped itself. So obviously the rope is jammed into the valve. This is a little valve tool which I added some all thread rod so you have a little bit more leverage. It's very simple. There's a few different kinds here. You can get ones that are like a bar style and whatever it may be, but you just want to collapse the spring. Whoops. Oh, the pressure's on. Stressful. You got to kind of hold it. I like to put a glove on because it's going to go smack. Rather it smack my glove hand than my bare hand. So I got this going. So this is just like a spring compressor, doing a front end or something like that. So we got that down. Take a magnet, grab the little keepers. This is what holds everything together. Boom, get those out. I keep those on the magnet, because if you lose those, you're in for trouble. Off. Go ahead and loosen it. Now, if you were so inclined, I'm not doing it. This is your valve seal, so you could change that. They actually look like they're in pretty good shape. It's probably good. And these are the ones you want to get, the umbrella style. The other ones are junk. Valve out. Take the top off. We'll get the other one into the compressor. And we'll do this all backwards. So I'll get all started. See you right away. So we've got our valve compressoed. Make sure the valve's all the way up, which it is. It can fall a little bit here and there. Okay, so we got it sitting on there. Take our little keepers. These, it's kind of hard to explain how they work, but they're pretty simple. They kind of only go in one way. They're tapered to the end of the valve. Gentle. Of course the camera's on now, so it's fighting me. What have I done there? Okay, so that one just fell down a little bit too much. Keep the tension on it. Let her go. And there we go. Installed. Now put the rocker back on. And you only gotta do this 16 times. It's terribly boring. Make sure you don't lose any parts. And you're all set. While you're at it, you can inspect the rocker. This one's in pretty good shape. Sometimes they wear out. They get a little oblong where the push rod goes and stuff like that. But this thing's relatively mint. So we're gonna put it back together. And I just kind of, even though it's all kind of obviously not final assembly, I always just like to thread all the parts on. That way I'm not looking for them, because I'm not the most organized guy. So I'll do all these, we'll come back, push rods in, set the valves, call it a day for now. I mean, really, we're basically done. Well, another day, another list of failures. So last night I was going to put all the valve springs, change them all over. Well, it turns out I took one of them apart, and the seal on one was completely junk. And I thought, you know what? If I got to get one, I might as well get 16. So I ended up coming home after work and redoing all the valve stem seals, which is a bit of a pain, but what are you going to do? So I got that all done. Springs are back in. Everything's taken care of. I did dump in the lifters and put in the push rods. Everything is just, like, literally just sitting there. It's all loose. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set the rockers. Now, typically, obviously, you want to tighten these down. Now, the goal is, so if you have your camshaft, and where the camshaft eggs up and has the bump, that is where it's going to be opening and closing the valves. So you want to essentially set the valve when it's on the base circle, which is the more round flat spot of the camshaft. So what you want to do in this case with a hydraulic roller is you'll bring it down so there's no play. So there'll be zero play there, and then you give it like a half a turn. Now the way I'm going to do it, because there's a way of rolling the motor over and finding what cylinder is on what base circle. If you just snug these all up, roll it a quarter turn, snug up again, another quarter turn, snug them up, another quarter turn, snug them up. You do that 4 times, you're guaranteed to have been on the base circle at some point. And then once you have that, all the slop is out, we'll go around, just give everything a half a turn. So I'll get you set up on my tripod, and I'll show you what we're doing here. Look at this. Oh, the other thing is, I put this cam in. I don't know if it shows up. It's not kind of shiny. It's more of, well, I guess it kind of looks like that. I always thought they were ground smooth and stuff, but, oh well, hope for the best. Okay, so I just went through and tightened everything. So all the push rods all have some load on them. Nothing's tight, but everything is just kind of touching. And if you look across, you'll be able to see that some of the threads, some of the studs have a pile of threads and some don't. Anyways, we have the ratchet down at like the 6 o'clock position, so we'll pull her up a quarter turn, let it fall back down. But now all of a sudden, look at that, we gotta play this one here. So we're gonna go through and double check some of these. So obviously now this one was up on the camshaft, like on the lobe, and is now, if not on the base circle, falling down to it. So it has the little bit of play. You want to take it out just so there's no play. You don't want to put any load on it just yet. And there we go. We're back to where we were. These ones are all good. Now this one, same idea. It's good. 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 This one's got a little bit. Good. 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 So once you get this all done, that one's good. Just a little bit. We'll give another quarter turn. Let it fall back down. That one stayed good, good. Now all of a sudden this one has play. Same thing, just tighten it up to the plays of the push rods. We'll carry on with this till they're all done. So I'll do it 2 more times, and I'll bring you back and I'll show you how we're gonna set the preload. Okay, so we've gone around. Every push rod has no play in it, which is kind of relevant at this stage, but obviously we've gone around enough times it's all been double checked on the base circle. Now, the lifter, which is what is actually riding on the camshaft, this being a hydraulic lifter, there's oil in there, so as the push rod sits in this cup, as you put pressure on it, it will actually push that down, and that's when people see, get pumped up lifter, it's got pumped oil. So anyways, that's why you want to make sure when you are snugging them down, you're not pushing into the lifter, because you can actually tighten it down and it'll push the plunger down inside the lifter and push all the oil out, which is going to give you a false reading. It'll be too tight. It'll hang the valves. So now we have basically zero lash is where we're kind of at on a hydraulic, on a Chevy like this. You can look it up everywhere. It's going to be between a quarter and a half turn of preload. Now some of these lifters are already going to be collapsed because we're not on the base circle. Some are, on the lift portion. But all we're going to do is I'm going to give these all a half turn, and we're going to call it good. Then after that, valve covers go on. And this would be, we can always set this after. Once it's running and stuff like that, you can set it with it running and just kind of loosen them until they clatter, then snug them up and give them the turn as well. But that's that. All right, so everything's all adjusted, ready to go. So now what we're going to hook this thing up to the Bobcat, because I originally thought we'd have it on a stand, make it look nice, all this sort of stuff. That ain't happening. And obviously no intake and stuff. So instead, we're going to drag this over to the other garage, transmission over to the other garage. We're going to put the new ring gear on, torque converter in the transmission, get it all bolted together, ready to drop in. That's where we're ending the video. Then I'm immediately going to start ripping that straight 6 out of that fine hot rod and swap motors. That'll be the next video. Plan? The other thing is, this was heavy when it was all fully dressed out, the intake and all that, and I had it on the tip of the Bobcat, which is a little tippy, so I'm hoping without the intake on, be good. And I'm going to try and tow it around, leave it on the cart, so if it all goes bad, it'll have the cart for a little bit. We're going to skate it. skated over. Big block Chevys are heavy. That Bobcat's handy. Anyway, we got the motor kind of on the crane, just kind of sitting there. I did change the ring gear. You know, this thing here probably could have been bent back. I'm sure what happened was it was fine. It got stored, got bent because it was just sitting like that. It wasn't with that transmission. So whatever. Anyways, that's that. Transmission's over here. I dragged it over. I pulled out the original stock converter and I put in this little performance guy. Hopefully it's installed to the moon. Should be like 26 to 29 or 2800 or something like that. So that's the plan. Hopefully should be good with the camshaft. So I'm going to jam these two together. Now the trick is the transmission is going to sit in these little dowels. But if you have these little pieces of ready rod or some long bolts with the heads cut off, you can slide the transmission over and you don't got to balance it too bad. This will take the load on the dowels, put a couple of bolts in, and you're set. So I'm gonna get some bolts. Loctite these guys, Loctite. And once we get that all together, I think we'll be done. Then I can start working on pulling the motor out of this unit. This part sucks, it's heavy. Okay, here comes the struggle. So I got the transmission on the floor jack. We got the engine kind of balancing the crane. And now we struggle. Oh, instant regret. I should really get one of those transmission jacks. No, none of this is working. And it's off the jack. Okay, we're back. Whew. Mint. Well, there we go. So a couple days of failure, but it's all together. Hopefully it doesn't wipe his cam out the second we start it up. Try and break it in. But that's where we're leaving. So the headers look like they're going to fit around the transmission and everything. We got lots of room around the oil filter. I gotta get some proper bolts, header bolts. I'll get those tonight maybe. It should fit around the starter, no problem. Everything should be pretty good. I'm hoping. I'm gonna leave it kind of bare bones. Under the hood here, in theory, there should be lots of room. My only concern is motor mounts. I did order square body motor mounts because that's square body mounts on the motor. So hopefully that'll all just kind of make sense. I mean, at one point, this car could have had a 427 in it. So that's the exact same thing as that. So my thoughts are it'll fit no problem, or that's my hope anyways. So next video, this is getting plunked out. That's getting plunked in. But for now, it's hot. I'm gonna go cool off. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Comment below. I really appreciate how you guys didn't want me to paint this thing, because it's so much easier when you don't have to screw around cleaning and painting and sanding and all that stuff. For ultimately, it's gonna look like crap the first time I fired up, spill gas all over it. So that's it for me. Subscribe below. See you in the next video.